latest news, national issues, the political scene, and conversations with prominent personalities. All these firsthand at the forefront. The Philippine Air Force has confirmed yesterday the tragic loss of an FA-50 fighter jet that went missing during a tactical night operation. The aircraft was located the following day in the Mount Kalatungan Complex in Bukidnon, with both pilots found dead in the crash site. Since then, the PAF has grounded its remaining FA-50 fleet as authorities launch a probe into the incident. What could have caused the crash of one of the country's most advanced fighter jets? Joining us this morning at the BNC studio is the spokesperson of the Philippine Air Force, Colonel Maria Consuelo Castillo. Good morning, Colonel Bon.
Good morning, Atty. Karen, at good morning po sa mga taga-panood nitong inyong programa.
Thank you for being with us here today. And this is the second crash that happened in Mindanao this year. Can you give us the details of the crash that occurred in February 6?
Oh, what crash was that, ma'am?
This is according to a report wherein there was a crash as well of a fighter plane of the Philippine Air Force in the province of Maguindanao del Sur. Is this accurate?
No, ma'am, that's not accurate. Actually, this is the first time that there was a crash of this type of aircraft, the FA-50 aircraft. Besides that, ma'am, no other aircraft of the Philippine Air Force has crashed within the year.
Okay, so would you know if, because according to this report of a crash in February 6, there were 4 Americans that died in that crash. So this has nothing to do with the Philippine Air Force.
With the Philippine Air Force.
Okay, so that could be a separate operation.
Yes, ma'am, and it's a different aircraft. I believe it's a civilian aircraft.
It's a civilian, okay.
Yes,
so that was at least not any related to any mission of the Philippine Air Force?
Yes, ma'am, definitely. As I have said, this crash that happened on March 6, this FA-50 aircraft is the first crash that was reported of the Philippine Air Force.
And the mission for this FA-50 fighter jet is a night tactical mission. Can you give us an idea what that means?
Yes, ma'am. The Philippine Air Force is a force provider for the missions of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Particularly in this mission, it was tasked to perform tactical night operations in support of the operating ground troops in Mindanao. As regards the details of the operations itself, we would leave it to the force employers, which that would be Eastern Mindanao Command, to give the details.
Ano pong nangyayari sa Mindanao right now? Is there a peace and order issue?
As usual, we have our usual operations against lawless elements, against local terrorists, and once in a while, our aircraft from the Philippine Air Force are being employed to provide air support to our operating ground troops.
Okay, and were there any distress signals prior to that, before the crash occurred?
Based on the report of the other aircraft that flew, because whenever we fly these missions, usually it's multiple aircraft. And based on the narration of the other pilots involved in flight, they said that there was no unusual radio message from the other aircraft prior to it being declared, missing. And they said when they were on their way to the mission area, minutes before they reached the target, they lost communication of the other aircraft that was trailing. And they continued on with the mission, believing that it was just a simple radio problem of the other aircraft. And once they completed the mission, they flew back to Mactan Benito Ebuen Air Base because that's their staging point. And since they did not reestablish any contact with that aircraft, it was then declared missing. And soon after that, at the break of dawn of March 4, the Air Force already launched a aerial search. We deployed our helicopters to conduct aerial search over the suspected site where the aircraft could have been downed. And the operations the whole day of March 4 continued. We deployed different types of helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft to monitor, to check on the area. However, we are also challenged by fog and the precipitation because it's a mountainous area, the suspected area where the aircraft could have been, they suspected because of there were detections of emissions of the local emergency transmitter. This is something that gets activated whenever there's an aircraft is downed. And there's also some indications of what they say are emissions from the personal location beacons that is usually with the pilot.
Okay, so
and
this
based on
sounds
that,
all super technical. So
yes.
when we look at that night tactical mission, how many fighter jets were deployed?
We cannot say the specific number.
Okay,
That's
so that's
also
confidential.
based on operational security.
Okay.
We don't usually divulge how many aircraft are being deployed. But then it's part of a flight. Usually it's a multiple aircraft mission.
And when you mentioned that the next day, that's when they started to look for the other missing fighter plane. When they found the fighter plane, what was the condition? Was it completely destroyed? And were there other survivors or no survivors?
Based on the narration of the Army personnel, Special Forces, as well as civilian volunteers who were deployed to search the aircraft, the area where the crash site is on a ridge line, and it's thickly forested. And when they saw the wreckage, it's completely wrecked. Actually, bits and pieces of everything. The aircraft, because you could just imagine this aircraft usually flies at very, very high speed. And if you could imagine the probable impact it had on the ground, you would expect that the wreckage is really, contains bits and pieces of aircraft,
So it
body
would
parts,
be very difficult to survive
body parts.
that
But
type of
based on
crash.
their assessment, they believe that those are the remains of the two pilots.
How old is this aircraft?
This aircraft is one of our newest acquisition, relatively, because we acquired it only in 2015. We have 12 of this type of aircraft delivered between 2015 to 2017. So we have 12 of this aircraft.
Where is it made?
It's made in Korea, South Korea.
And this is a very advanced fighter plane. Would you know if the cause could have been engine problems, or is it an issue of human error?
Right now, ma'am, we cannot say. We would have to conduct a very thorough investigation to determine the cause of the mishap. There could be a lot of factors. Usually when we investigate, we look at every angle. We look at probable material or mechanical factors, the state of the personnel involved, human factor. We can even look at the weather condition in the area, wind, clouds, precipitation. So all of these things have to be considered, ma'am.
Would you know if it's possible that this could have been shot down by local terrorist groups that they were conducting the operation against?
Well, if you would look at it, ma'am, this aircraft flies at very high altitudes and very high speeds. And if we are to compare also with the capability of our local terrorists, are they capable of shooting down an aircraft that high and with that speed? So, well, it's probable, but it's very
Highly
unlikely that unless they were flying very slow and very near the terrain and the firepower of the enemy could have reached them.
And you mentioned that this is an operation in the Mindanao area against local terrorist groups. Is this involving the NPA as well?
We cannot,
You cannot-
again, we cannot divulge. Those are operational matters that only our force employers can answer.
Okay. And what is the Philippine Air Force doing to avoid incidents similar to these from happening again in the future?
Yes, ma'am, definitely. What we really have to do is to go through the very extensive and thorough investigation to determine the cause of the problem. If it's deemed to be caused by any of our procedures or any of our maintenance processes, which we believe is highly unlikely as of this point, because we really make sure in the Air Force that we have the highest maintenance standards. But then sometimes probably we have to reassess. So those are the things that we have to look at, the probable reasons. We look at all angles. We even have to look at the state of the pilots themselves, because that could also be something that could have caused the accident. Are they well rested? Are they in the right mental state? But those are some of the factors. At the same time, our procedures when flying at night. Although what we can assure you, all our procedures right now are very well in place and are very well implemented. But this accident is unfortunate, but it would also require us to do more reassessments of what we're doing.
Well, the planes were made abroad, as
Yes,
you mentioned, for the FA-50 from Korea. Does the maintenance involve also having them serviced by Korean companies, or is it something that is done solely here in the Philippines?
We do get help in terms of maintenance, but we are also well equipped, and our personnel are also well trained to do the maintenance ourselves.
Okay, and right now it was reported that the FA-50 fleet, the rest of it, has been grounded. Is that accurate? And what does this mean?
Yes, ma'am. We would call it administrative grounding. We ground them just to make sure that if the probable cause of the accident is material or mechanical in nature, we would have to check our whole fleet and reassess all the systems. And but as soon as we can get them back into flight, the better, because we really need them. And if there is any national emergency that would warrant that we lift the grounding, because we need to respond to national emergencies, then we're going to have them flying soon.
Is this the first time that this happened, wherein you have a fighter jet that crashed and that you're grounding a fleet as well? How long is it going to be?
For this type of aircraft, ma'am, this is the very first time that we had a mishap for this type of aircraft. But of course, for other types of aircraft in the past, we also had similar cases wherein we had to ground the whole fleet, so that we can just rule out the possibility that the cause of the accident is due to some systems problem that we have to address with the other fleet before we get them flying, so that we can ensure the safety of our pilots.
On average, how long does that take, the grounding?
Usually a few days.
Okay, sandali lang.
Give and take of, yeah.
Yeah. And how skilled are our fighter pilots from the Philippine Air Force?
Yes, ma'am, we can assure you that all our pilots that that are flying our aircraft are very well skilled. They're very proficient for day and night operations, because this type of aircraft, as you've said, is very sophisticated. It's our most modern and most sophisticated aircraft to date. And for you to qualify to fly this fighter aircraft, it would demand really a lot of proficiency. And for you to get into the fighter, to the fighter wing, you have to go through levels of flying. Flying training. First, you have to go through their entry-level aircraft, which is the SF-260, and build more time there and proficiency before you get upgraded to fly this more sophisticated aircraft.
In all total, around how many flying hours does it take in order to be qualified to fly this type of
yes,
aircraft?
Yes, ma'am, hundreds, even thousands of flying hours.
And what about you, Colonel Bond? Are you able to fly this type of aircraft?
No, ma'am, I'm not qualified to fly a jet, but I'm a helicopter pilot.
So talagang it takes a lot of training.
Yes, ma'am.
In order to fly this. How is the Philippine Air Force now taking care of the families of the pilots that were involved in the crash?
Ma'am, from day one, since we learned about the aircraft missing, we already got in touch with the families of the involved air crew. And we've been monitoring them, and we've been trying to make sure that we are helping them in all their needs. and supporting them in these most trying times.
And based on the process and the procedures in the Philippine Air Force, is there a budget for providing financial assistance to families?
Yes, ma'am. We give them the necessary financial assistance, not only for the interment services for the deceased, but we beyond that, ma'am, we also give support to the sustainment of their livelihood for the education of the children.
Is it confirmed that the pilots already have passed away, or is there any possibility that they could have survived?
Ma'am, although we got information from the ground troops that they discovered the remains of 2 pilots, that would have to be validated further, considering that the remains were really not, they're mostly scattered remains already of the pilots, and we
Not
would have,
identifiable.
Yes, the initial report was they said they found 2 remains, but then we have to validate as soon as our ground troops have reached the ground. It's a difficult trek going down. It's a very dangerous area for our rescuers, but as soon as they are back in the safer area and we've conducted all the necessary tests and validation, then probably that would be the time that we're going to officially announce the names of the concerned aircraft.
In the experience of the Philippine Air Force, when accidents like this happen, does it affect the budget of the Philippine Air Force moving forward in terms of procuring additional fighter planes or being questioned in terms of having, of maintaining a fleet like this?
Ma'am, that one I cannot specifically answer, but if I would go through previous instances wherein we had a mishap of other types of aircraft, there were succeeding acquisitions. Probably they were able to point out that it's not a problem with the aircraft itself.
Or nor the skill level of our
Yes,
fighter
ma'am.
pilots.
Yes, ma'am.
Will there be any changes in how tactical night operations are conducted because of this incident?
Probably there will be assessments, ma'am, of our tactics, techniques, and procedures. That's part of the process, ma'am.
What lessons have the Air Force learned from this incident?
Ma'am, right now, because we still have to go through the very thorough investigation of what happened, probably part of the process will be generating, the lessons that we can take from this unfortunate incident.
So what can we expect from the Philippine Air Force in the upcoming days or weeks in terms of knowing what caused the accident and who was responsible for this, if this were something that was this was an incident of being shot down?
Yes, ma'am. As I've said, ma'am, our commitment is that we're going to ensure a very thorough investigation of what happened. We're going to look at all angles to make sure that no stones left unturned. We'll be able to get down into the bottom of why this happened, and succeedingly, we're going to ensure also that corrections will be made. If ever found that we have to do some improvements in our systems and in our processes, that's our commitment, ma'am, because our commitment is to continuously improve our organization so that we can serve our nation better.
Thank you. And will the Philippine Air Force eventually disclose the identities of the pilots?
Yes, ma'am. Once we have fully confirmed that the remains that were initially declared to have been recovered from the site are those really of the 2 pilots, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Colonel Bon, and good luck po with the investigation.
Yes, ma'am. Maraming salamat po. And on behalf of our Commanding General, Lieutenant General Arthur M. Cordura, and on behalf of the men and women of the Philippine Air Force, we thank the whole nation for their continued confidence in your Philippine Air Force. And from our end, we will continue to serve you the best way we can.
Okay, and we're very grateful for the service po.
Yes, ma'am. And also, ma'am, if we can also ask the whole nation to join us in constant prayer for our air crew and for their families. At the same time, let us all honor the service and heroism that they have displayed.
We will do that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
So much.
Thank you.
At the Forefront will return after a short break. Welcome back at the Forefront. Welcome back at the Forefront. And now joining us via phone patch is lawyer and political commentator, Attorney Ferdinand Topacio. Good morning, Attorney Ferdy.
Attorney Karen, it's always a pleasure to be in the show.
Yes, and I was hoping that you would be here in person, but let's talk about some of the current issues that our country is facing. One of them is the case that you filed along with also members of Congress and a Citizens Crime Watch group on the budget. So there were graft and criminal cases that were filed, among them against House Speaker Martin Romualdez. Can you give us any updates on the status of this case?
The latest action that we did with respect to that complaint, which incidentally is also for violation of certain provisions of the revised penal code, specifically falsification of legislative documents, is that we have a request for the Ombudsman to impose preventive suspension on the respondents. The reason being that the respondents there are some of the most powerful people in this country, including the Speaker himself, who has full control over the personnel of the House of Representatives, who have custody of the records. He has full control and supervision over all employees of the House of Representatives, and we fear, therefore we allege in our motion, that he may be able to tamper with evidence or influence or intimidate witnesses. That is why there is a need for preventive suspension immediately.
Mm-hmm. And are you confident that this would be acted upon, considering that, as you mentioned, these are very powerful people and the Speaker is a cousin of the President?
We are very hopeful because although these are the most powerful people we are dealing with, that is precisely the mandate of the Ombudsman. That is why it was made by the framers of our Constitution in their infinite wisdom to make them independent of any agency. And the Ombudsman himself is answerable only in case of impeachment. And we are hopeful that notwithstanding this fact that we are dealing with influential people, that the Ombudsman will exercise his constitutional prerogative and be unfazed by the challenges that may lie ahead when dealing with people or personages of such a high office.
And going back to the case that you filed, can you give us a quick recap on the basis of the cases? So, one, graft cases, and also criminal cases. Yes. So can you just give us an overview?
The overview is that we allege that in at least 12 different instances, there were unauthorized insertions or additions to the General Appropriations Bill during the time, between the time that it was approved by the bicameral, meaning both houses of Congress, and the time that it was registered as a rolled bill. Because as approved by the Senate and the House, the budget contained certain provisions which provided for zero budget for certain matters. Mystically, between the time that it was approved and the time that it became an enrolled bill and transmitted to the President for his signature for it to become law, there were insertions to the tune of around more than 200 billion, which we think, well, with respect to the amounts, we leave it to the question of that, the validity of that, we leave it to the existing or the pending case before the Supreme Court. But with respect to the criminal liability of those who were responsible for such insertions, we will have to take them into account. That is why we went to the office of the Ombudsman.
Okay. And from what I understand, the cases also include among the respondents some John Does and Jane Does. Why is that?
Because, of course, in the natural course of things, compañera, the respondent, the speaker, the chairman of the appropriations committee, the other respondents would not themselves do the insertion. That would be absurd. Of course, they will have to issue the order to their subordinates to make those insertions. And since we have no way of ascertaining their identities because we have been stonewalled by the House of Representatives, it took us a long time to get information even on a copy of the enrolled bill, a copy of the General Appropriations Bill, which is the same complaint aired by Senator Pimentel when he said that he was already a senator and yet he was in the dark as to what the technical working group was doing. So at this point, we have no way of ascertaining identities. We are hopeful that the Ombudsman, with its vast powers of summoning people, issuing subpoenas, duces tecum, and ad testificandum, would be in the best position to know the identities of these personalities who were ordered by the respondents to make these insertions.
Okay. And it's clear that the basis for the case on the revised penal code is because of the alterations on public documents. But what about the graft cases? What are the basis for this?
Definitely, with the insertions in the hundreds of billions of pesos, the Filipino people were disadvantaged. They were caused damages because, as I've been saying, this is a crime not only against the revised penal code, but the Filipino people. These expenditures in the hundreds of billions were not approved by the representatives of the people in the Senate and in the House. And yet, a small group of people, a small cabal, took it upon themselves to arrogate the powers of the entire legislature by putting in these amounts, which, if you will notice, Ma'am Karen, are in soft projects, meaning to say these are the projects that have been complained of since time immemorial as susceptible of being tampered with in so many possible ways.
And what is the status of the cases that you filed? Has it gone forward with the preliminary investigation?
We are praying that progress be made because it's been almost a month, I believe, since we filed the case, and we are awaiting eagerly the action of the Ombudsman, as I'm sure the Filipino people are also awaiting for this action. They want to know the truth, and we are thankful for programs such as yours, compañera, which keep this issue alive because, sometimes we Filipinos are notorious for the so-called ningas kogon mentality. I hope that this issue will be sustained, not for anything else, not for any political effect as they are accusing us of, not for any diversionary tactic that they are falsely accusing us of, but for the interest of the people. These are taxpayers' money that we are dealing with. Money, hard-earned money that the Filipino people have paid to the government for the government to use for their benefit and in their service. And these are the funds that we fear are being wasted on useless projects.
And Attorney Ferdy, are you confident on the merits of this case?
I am very confident that we have a good case here because the facts are so clear. It cannot be denied. There are blanks as approved by both houses, and then these blanks suddenly had entries when they reached the president. And in fairness to the president, he may have been blinded by some people around him. I do not attribute any malice to the president with respect to this matter. I think the fault lies squarely within the House of Representatives, the House of Origin, where all appropriations bills emanate, and that was before they transmitted the same to Malacanang for it to become law under the process provided for in the Constitution.
Okay. Thank you so much, Attorney Ferdy Topacio, and we'll certainly continue to get updates from you.
Yes, it's been my pleasure. Thank you very much. And to you and to all your listeners and viewers, God bless.
Thank you. We'll have Congressman Ace Barbers when At the Forefront returns after a short break. Welcome back at the Forefront. Joining us via phone patch is Surigao del Norte 2nd District Representative, Congressman Ace Barbers. Good morning, Congressman Ace.
Good morning, Attorney Karen, and good morning to all our televiewers.
Congressman Ace, kamusta naman po kayo ngayon sa Surigao?
Okay. No, we're busy in our efforts to campaign, and we're moving from one town to another, and continuously sharing our platforms of government to our people here in Surigao.
So busy pa rin po, no, kahit na nag-adjourn na yung Congress.
Yeah, medyo busy dahil it's election season, and people are actually expecting to see what the candidates had to offer. So ikot lang kami ng ikot, continuously showing what we can do for the province and for the district.
And yung pag-ikot niyo po, this is for your wife who's running for Congress. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the whole team. We have a team of Nacionalista Party candidates. We call our team in the local political scene as Abante Surigao. So that's what we're doing. We're promoting Abante Surigao.
Okay. And Congressman Ace, napakainit na po ngayon dito sa Manila. Is it the same in Surigao?
No, baliktad. While mainit na mainit dyan, dito naman ay tuloy-tuloy ang ulan.
Okay. O so para dun pala sa mga gustong mag-escape sa init, they should consider going to Surigao.
Oh yeah, if they want to experience continuous rain for a week without sunshine, they can come to Surigao or any province in Caraga.
And then let's go po to this case that was filed against you just yesterday. So vloggers filed a libel case against you. Can you let us know what your comment is on this?
Well, I just found out that there was a case filed against me just yesterday, no? I don't know when they filed it, but sabi ko nga, kasama naman yan eh. Siyempre, takot yan mga yan humarap sa TRICOM. Takot yan mga yan in fact, ang kanilang basis for filing a libel case against me is a pure harassment case, no? Para lang mahinto yung investigation at yung committee hearings ng TRICOM. Again, no, they're saying that tinawag ko raw silang narco-vloggers at pogo vloggers. Totoo. Meron akong statement doon sa aking privileged speech na these vloggers who continuously throw fake news or peddle fake news against the government, against anybody in government, seems to be funded, no, by these pogo vloggers and these narco vloggers. I did not name names. Kaya nga naintindihan naman ng abogado nila yan, Karen, and I'm sure it was delivered in a privileged speech, and the meat of the speech was about certain vloggers who follow the narratives of the Chinese in the West Philippine Sea issue. Vloggers who continuously attack the administration, people in the administration who seem to have been hurt, no, by the campaign against pogos, against illegal drugs, and who could have funded this? Siyempre, ito yung mga narco syndicates, no, and mga pogo syndicates. And those who parrot, no, the narratives of these syndicates are perhaps being motivated by the amount of money that being paid. So siguro yun ang ko doon. Kaya nga dapat imbestigahan yan.
Yeah. So Congressman Ace, in the past, you were quoted as asking the NBI to investigate the links of these vloggers to illegal drug operations and pogos. So
That's right,
is
yes.
this investigation being conducted right now?
I believe so, Karen, kasi I wrote that letter a few months ago before the start of the TRICOM, when after I delivered several speeches, no, in the context of the social media platforms being abused by some bloggers. No? Kaya nga sabi natin, dapat magkaroon ng code of ethics or code of conduct para hindi ito maabuso at hindi ito magamit para makapanirang puri o bigay ng kaguluhan sa ating bansa. Yun ang objective ng investigation. And I'm sure na the NBI is doing their job. No? They're investigating that.
Is there any bill or at least technical working group right now in Congress? I know it has been adjourned, but before the adjournment, meron po bang grupo that started already drafting or looking into a law that would address fake news?
Yes, I believe so, Karen. In the committee, the Tri-Committee, we have already started inputting some ideas from those who attended the committee hearings, especially those that came from the academe. May mga ideas kasi sila na dapat gawin ganito ang social media platforms, no? Magkaroon ng isang regulatory policy or framework nang sa ganun ay masiguro na hindi ito maabuso. Meron din kaming kinonsider na mga opinion ng people in government, especially the advice and the suggestion of the DICT, the CICC, and some respected journalists, both in print and in broadcast. So mukhang nabubuo na dahan-dahan itong aming gagawing batas, pero of course we still need more, no? Kaya nga gusto namin sana itong mga vloggers na ito na hindi naman guilty because they probably felt alluded to. Wala namang kami sinasabi, di ba? Wala namang kami pinangalanan. So kaya nga dapat mag-contribute sila, no? Kung gusto nila na maayos ang paggamit ng social media platforms at hindi ito magamit para magkaroon ng kaguluhan sa bansa o hindi kaya makapanirang puri, dapat sumama sila rito sa layunin itong TRICOM na ito na magbuo ng isang regulatory body or regulatory policy.
Before the 19th Congress adjourned, one of the last few hearings was the hearing in Congress on fake news. Will we be seeing another potential hearing asking vloggers to attend as resource persons in the 20th Congress?
I think so. This will probably, if we will not be able to finish this during the 19th Congress, siguro itutuloy-tuloy nila ito sa 20th Congress. And everybody believes, no, na may pangangailangan talaga na magkaroon ng isang regulation o regulatory policy itong paggamit ng social media. Meron nga dun in the last hearing sa Tri-Committee, may nag-expose nga doon na maraming fake accounts sa Twitter, sa TikTok, and sa Facebook na nag-originate from China. No? At ang layunin nito ay ang nilalabas nitong mga contents yung anti-government, no? And pro-China. Yun ang dapat natin silipin. Dahil baka makakontrol ang narrative ng Pilipinas ng ibang bansa. Kaya nangangailangan talaga tayo ng isang mahigpit na polisiya tungkol dito.
Okay,
without of course stifling the freedom of speech and freedom of expression that is enshrined in our Constitution.
And wala naman po bang risk na mako-contempt yung mga vloggers if they attend these congressional hearings? Some of them were saying that they were worried that they were being called to appear and then mako-contempt sila so that they won't be able to post anymore.
Hindi ko alam kung saan ang galing yun but that's their imagination. Baka hindi ko alam baka baka nag-iisip na sila ahead of time. Alam mo, the only way that the committee can cite a person in contempt is if they violate the rules. The rules are very clear. They can contest, no? Kung halimbawa, someone moves for citing someone in contempt, they can appeal, they can actually question that kung wala talagang basihan. But if they violate the rules of procedure governing inquiries in aid of legislation, then may pananagutan sila doon. At meron tayong contempt powers, binigay din po ng ating saligang batas.
Okay, and Congressman Ace, since you mentioned that this libel case filed against you, you deem it just as harassment, are you confident that this would be dismissed?
Yeah, I think it will be dismissed. No, I'm confident that the case will be dismissed because it will just appear to be a harassment. Yung abogado nila, alam din nila yun eh. So, una, wala nga pangalan doon eh. Bakit kayo umamin? Did you feel alluded to? Oh, number two, this is a speech delivered in a privileged speech in the House of Representatives. Sabi naman nila, hindi, yung mga interviews mo eh. Even though, in my interviews, did I name anyone? Wala naman akong pinangalanan. Di ba?
Yes, very good point. Thank you so much, Congressman Ace Barbers, and good luck po sa pag-ikot ninyo there in Surigao.
Yeah, maraming salamat, Attorney Karen.
Thank you. The crash of the PAF fighter jet and the filing of libel case against Congressman Ace Barbers were two of the top news yesterday. For updates on these and other developing stories, stay tuned to Bilyonaryo News Channel. Be timely informed, be insightful of the news. Always stay at the forefront. Join us again tomorrow for meaningful conversations that would help you form an objective personal opinion. This is Attorney Karen Jimeno. Thank you for spending your hour with us.